Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. On tonight's episode, if I can learn how to talk, we're going to touch on something that actually has been a very big thing actually in my life. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, I wonder if this is actually like a real thing. I mean, I know it's a real thing because I was going through it, but I wanted to see if it was like um, something that was like, I don't know, internet worthy, I guess. I don't know how to word it. Anyway, it's called basically it's about the family bully, being bullied by family members, and how to deal with family bullies. Um, and if you're like me, you've endured particular people in the family that have been bullies and have been um, very traumatizing and very difficult. I guess I don't know how the word kind of ruined um, some things in my life, some holidays, some outings, some get-togethers, some parts of my life that I actually have had to learn how to step away from them. And my mother always says, you can't change people. You can only change how you react to people. And sometimes that's true, I feel, but it depends on the situation and the circumstance. Because with my situation, even though I have taken them out of my life per se, I still have to be cordial to them out of respect of my mom. Because with me obviously taking care of my mom, um, they are not in my life, they're in her life. And so, because of that, I am respectful to my mother and I'm cordial to them, if that makes sense. But anyway, so in this episode, we're going to talk about family bullies. And I printed this off verywellfamily.com. Um, I printed this off and I haven't really read through it, so we're going to go over it together. And of course, I'll put in my own personal thoughts here and there as I go, because if you're familiar with my podcast, I do that. Um, and like I said, I can't see who listens to my podcast. And I was talking to my counselor, I think last session, because I go to counseling. I've been through so much trauma and drama that I am actually in therapy, and I'm also in physical therapy, but I'm also in mental therapy, and I'm also on medication. And I have been very open and very candid about it in my podcast because this is me and this is life. And I'm sure I am not the only one in the world that goes through things. But anyway, I didn't forgot what I was gonna say. This happens with old age. I was telling my counselor something. I don't know. I'll come back to whatever it was. I don't know. I could tell you all the lyrics to songs, but I'll tell you, well, the older songs, but I lose my head if it wasn't attached to me. I don't remember what I was going to say. I was telling my therapist. So obviously, um, we're going to move on. And if I think about it, then obviously I'll stop. So anyway, this was off of verywellfamily.com. It was written by Sherry Gordon and medically reviewed by Amy Morin on April 29th, 2021. Definitely want to give my citation. It says 6 ways to deal with a family bully. Contrary to the popular belief, bullying doesn't always disappear along with acne, driving courses, and standardized tests of the teen years. In fact, it can continue into adulthood and be found in just about any setting. Aside from online bullying, workplace bullying, and even sibling bullying, bullying can occur in families among adults. Any adult in a family can be a bully, and any adult can be a target in your family. The person bullying you might be a sibling, might be a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, an adult child, or even one of your in laws. If you're faced with a bully in your family, here's what you need to know to confront the situation. So obviously, my take on this, we have a lot of children that are, you hear a lot of stories about kids being bullied. And if you are being bullied, obviously, my heart goes out to you. Um, Nobody deserves to be treated that way. And if you are going through something, please speak up and say something to somebody. And obviously, make it a priority to make you a priority, because I have been taught, and I'm gonna switch this for a minute, because I believe that a lot of times the way people react to you and treat you is a reflection of something that they are either going through or something reflected on them. Um, it is not necessarily have to be anything about you at all or concerning you or your fault on anything. You could have just been there, an easy target, or just somebody that they knew that they could get their grasp in, and it made them feel a little bit more superior, or it could make them, I don't know, basically, metaphorically, hopefully metaphorically, using you as a punching bag. Because sometimes when people are going through something, they have no outlet or anything, and then I'm just using this and as a general example, because there's all kinds of situations and all kinds of reasons, but sometimes people use people as their scapegoat or their punching bag because they have nowhere else to put their feelings, and sometimes it might be because you're the only one there. And so you get the butt of everything. You really do. And if you're going through something, whether you're an adult or a child, please note it is not your fault, and you do not deserve to be treated that way. And it is not wrong for you to stand up for yourself. Never is it wrong for you to stand up for yourself. So just wanted to say that. But as children grow up that are bullies, where do you think they go? They turn into adult bullies. And if you happen to have an adult bully in your family, then you might have experienced family bullying. So it says, what is family bullying? Most of the time, family bullying takes place in the form of rational aggression, but it can, in extreme cases, escalate into physical bullying too. Oftentimes, though, family bullies use manipulation, humiliation, and intimidation. They also might engage in constant criticism, blame the target often, like blame you often for things. Maybe it might even be their fault, but they're going to blame you. You might not have done anything, but you always get the blame. Call them names, they might call you names, and refuse to value and appreciate you. The family bully may even engage in gaslighting or attempt to isolate the target by turning other families against them or using the silent treatment to shut them out. Sometimes family bullying happens simply because the adult who bullies has never learned how to relate to others in a healthy way. Other times it occurs because the bully wants to manipulate and control the situation. If that doesn't have my family and my life written in that paragraph, I don't know what does. um, it's important to note that family bullying is not the same thing as domestic violence, which occurs between dating, cohabitating, and married partners. Although the intention is the same and there is some overlap in types of behavior, family bullying involves adult family members who are not intimate partners. So, obviously, um, some people might, call you names, try to talk to other family members behind your back about you. Boy, if I haven't had that happen in my life, I don't know who has. Um, I have had so many things said about me, and it's like I don't know what I've done to be treated the way I've been treated by my relatives. I'm gonna say relatives because my mom and I have this saying: you got family and you got them damn relatives. And I've got a lot of relatives, and I can count my family on one hand, honestly. And I definitely have the bullies in my family as relatives. Anyway, effects of family bullying. Much like traditional bullying or cyberbullying, experiencing family bullying can have a lasting impact. Adults who are bullied experience a number of physical and mental consequences as the result of bullying. According to a survey conducted by the American Osteopathic Association, for instance, 71% of family bullying targets reported struggling with stress. 70% indicated that depression and anxiety were a concern, and 55% reported a loss of confidence. Other effects of adult bullying include sleep loss, headaches, muscle tension, and pain. Nearly 20% of those targets by family bullies said that they had a mental breakdown because of the bullying. 17% indicated that they could not function from day to day. Now, I will say this in our family, at the holidays, which is not like this anymore because we do the holidays different now. Because of a situation that happened at my grandson's funeral. And I'm just going to put this out because, like I said, I can't see who. This is what I was going to tell my therapist. this is what I was going to tell my therapist. This is why I'm in therapy, people. I told him, um, I can't see who listens to this podcast. He might be sitting back right now laughing at me. Because I don't know. He might be listening. I don't know. So anyway, I can't see who listens to my podcast. All I see is the squiggly lines on the screen. So I tell him this. I'm okay with that because that way I don't feel like I have to watch what I say. If I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to keep it real, then I'm going to keep it real. And whoever's at the other end of this, if you take this to heart, either one is something dramatic that you and I have went through on a sensitive side, say like one of my kids or somebody close and dear to me, like a friend or something. This is that's a different situation. And I'm not out to personally hurt anybody. I'm not that kind of person. But if you are like a family member or somebody that I know that has affected me in some way that I don't know how to, just that I've washed my hands of you with, disrespectful, um, then if the shoe fits, wear it. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but I am not sugarcoating my feelings on my podcast. I'm not going to sugarcoat my emotions, my well being, and tiptoe around everybody's else's feelings with respect, of course. I can't please everybody. If I go and sit here and try to please everybody, I might as well just be banging my head up against the wall. So this is one of the reasons why I'm in therapy because my family, my relatives have done so much to me over the years. When my grandson passed away, my daughter, my youngest daughter, had to keep me alive. And bless her heart, she was young, and she is my sole reason that I have survived. And I mean that with all my heart and with the utmost respect for my daughter. As for my family members, um, yeah, um, not so much. They were talking behind my back. Actually, up until probably here recently, they were talking about my behind my back all the time. Um, and the things were not nice. Like they literally had me in tears. I would, catch a glimpse of a conversation or hear things that they've said or, just the way they've treated me or the lack thereof when I needed them the most. Yeah, they weren't there. But then had the audacity to talk about me behind my back on things that they don't know and understand on their own opinion. My grandson died from a tragedy. And I'm going to switch gears on this, but yet this kind of goes the same. And when my grandson passed away, obviously it was a huge tragedy, and I fell apart. I literally fell apart. I lost my home. I lost all my belongings. I lost myself. I wear scars of depression on my body. up and down my arms. It's covered in scars. I was a picker. I picked my skin subconsciously from anxiety all the time. I used to have to wrap my arms with ace bandages to keep from picking. Very a lot of trauma. I was homeless for 2.5 years, living in a vehicle on the side of the road, gas station, parking lots, truck stops, hospital parking lots, hotels, um, people's driveways that I knew, um, anywhere I can safely feel like I could lay my head. And sometimes I didn't feel safe where I really didn't sleep that much. I'd probably get winks of sleep and I would be constantly looking around because I didn't feel safe and secure where I was, but I really didn't know where else to go. And sometimes I would wake up and there would be somebody like a couple feet from my van. And I'm just like, and they shouldn't have been there. And so I don't know. And one time somebody was I was at the hospital parking lot and um a guy had hollered out at another guy and asked him what he was doing. And he's like, I'm sweeping the parking lot with a broom. He had like a broom and a dustpan, supposedly, and was sweeping the hospital parking lot. I don't know. But the guy was like, oh, it looked like you were trying to get in that van there, which was my van. And I was just like, what? So, anyway, my family was not there for me. And I deleted myself off of social media. And I reached out to one of my family members and had told them, hey, can we meet up for, lunch or something, and I can talk to you and explain to you what's been going on and why I deleted, you off of my Facebook and why I did this and that and the other. And they were like, yeah, sure, let me know when you're available. I'm like, well, you let me know when you're available. Your schedule's more, congested than mine. And to this day, that's never happened. But yet they talk about me behind my back. Um, and anyway, so at my grandson's funeral, um, I had told some family members that they were not welcome because they have been bullies in our family for so long that they actually would try to start arguments at holidays. And there was a lot that had went on, but they were not being appropriate um, to come to my grandson's funeral. So I told them they were not welcome to come. Do not come. And they waited to the very end when we were going up to say our last respects of the casket. And they all walked in, arm in arm, locked, like they were Billy Badasses walking up into that funeral home. And one of them went by me. I was holding my granddaughter, and my granddaughter was asleep. She has Down syndrome, and she was asleep in my arms. And she's just a tiny little thing. She was not even, I think she was like 2 maybe, and a year and a half. And one of them bumped into me, like on purpose. And I was like, what the hell? And then, they just wanted to, like, they wanted to start a fight in a funeral home, like argue with me and stuff. And I'm like, what? What is your, like, what is your problem? And I'm looking at him like, my grandson's laying up in a casket, like, what the hell are you doing? And my ex husband, bless his heart, he walked over to them and told them all, you get to out right now. Out. I'm not doing this. Out. And so they were made to leave. But they came in there locked arm in arm, like they were going to just, like they had, I'll show her. Like I had no right to tell them to stay out of my grandson's funeral. And then they tried to turn it around that I had said something to them, that I had started it. And I'm like, no, that's not happened. That didn't happen. And so anyway, that's just an example. And I have decided in my life that um, uh, if I'm going to get better and heal, I've come a long way in my life. I am not going to let the people in my family that had contributed to my additional pain that was not necessary and I didn't deserve, I'm not walking on eggshells for them. Now, like I said, I'm respectful because of my mother, but when the day comes that my mother passes away, I hope I never see them ever again, because I don't need that toxic pain in my life anymore. And I have told my mother this, but I told her out of respect for her, I will be cordial. She has family, I have relatives. And because of that, we do the holidays different now. My mom does holidays with me first and then fills them in, more or less. Um, so that's come a long way. And anyway, so we're going to continue reading. This is just an example of some things that do happen, and this is, and I'm sure everybody, I'm going to guess, everybody has a story or may have felt some type of way that maybe they never really looked at it as family bullying. Maybe they felt like the black sheep of the family or the outcast or, um, something like that. That's been me. I always laugh and joke with my mom and tell her I'm adopted because I'm nothing like my family. And she's like, you're not adopted. I said, well, then they must all be because we are nothing alike. Now, granted, we do all look alike, I feel. But yeah, I'm not like that. And at least I like to believe I'm not like that. Um, but I've always felt like that I don't belong, and I've always been made to feel like I am less of who I am. I've had to apologize for my intelligence. I've had to and apologize for my accomplishments. But then when my life fell apart, I was the first one to be judged, even though I had no reason to be judged. And I was the first one to be talked about when I hadn't done anything wrong. I was a victim of my grandson passing away. I was mourning the loss of my grandson and the tragedy behind it. And to be treated the way I was treated, for my family to be my kids, to be treated the way that they were treated is beyond wrong. And I don't need that toxicness in my life. I don't need it. It goes on to say, the emotional strain caused by adult bullying can even lead to gastrointestinal changes, elevated blood pressure, and cardiovascular issues. Another disturbing finding, 40% of those surveyed, 43%, I'm sorry, said that bullying among adults is becoming more accepted. The American Osteopathic Association, Bullying in America, survey finds one-third of Americans, 31%, have been bullied as an adult. You even got work bullies. I mean, you do. And sometimes, um, you know, it makes it difficult because sometimes if you have work bullies and then you have family, what if you say, like for instance, your family bully is your spouse? That was actually also another problem I had. My ex-husband did nothing but talk bad about me, put me down, make fun of me. Oh, you think you're so smart, Miss A plus algebra, and da 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 Miss 4.0, and look at you. And he would go up to this place that we karaoke, and he would talk about me so much that he actually had people not liking me based off of him. And then when they got to know me, they're like, I when I first met you, I couldn't stand you. Now you're like my best friend. I love you to death, girl. And it's like my ex-husband was up there talking crap about me, and then had the nerve to come home and and then wonder why I divorced him. I mean, really, honestly, it was very abusive, and so if you go to work and you got a work bully, and then you come home and you're being bullied, which obviously I guess that's kind of a form of domestic violence too, but it is, but it's not. I mean, we never had physical altercations, but everything else, he was an alcoholic, and everything else happened. I mean, you traumatized a lot of my life, that a lot of my daughter's life growing up, I really don't remember much because of all the trauma that I've been through while I was married. And it wasn't anything that she did. It was the trauma and the abuse that I was going through with him. And other things in my life, but mainly him and my family. So, it says warning signs of family bullying. Adults' bullying tactics are more subtle, manipulative, and controlling than those that children use. Bullying tends to happen more slowly over time through small actions and words. Experiencing this type of behavior can be confusing and cause you to doubt your perceptions. You may even question your memory or your judgment. It can be helpful to write down bullying incidents, including how they have made you feel. Do so Doing so will help you recognize that what you're experiencing is real and not something you're imagining. I actually have had to record conversations and incidences to prove that it was not me, and that I was being abused, that I was being bullied, that I was being I was the victim. And everybody was so quick to talk crap about me. Then I ended up having to resort to that, and it's like I should not have to do this. And had people thinking that I was crazy, that I was lost my mind, that I was making things up, that I was this, that, and the other. And I had never done anything in my life to ever have them ever think or treat me that way ever. It's just because I fell apart. I was not my normal self, and this was the repercussion from them that I got. Excuse me. Recognizing the signs of bullying involves looking at how your interactions with other people, with the other person, makes you feel. If you feel hurt, confused, frustrated, misunderstood, anxious, worthless, or like you're walking on eggshells anytime you interact with this person, chances are very high that you're being bullied. A family member who is bullying you may do the following: have unrealistic expectations or make unreasonable demands, blame you when things go wrong, invalidate your thoughts and feelings by undermining, minimizing, and dismissing you or your thoughts. That's my life. Create chaos in your life by starting arguments, nitpicking, or making contradictory statements. Use emotional blackmail as a way to control you or make you feel guilty. Act superior or condescending and attempt to one up you or prove you wrong. Make jokes at your expense or be sarcastic and demeaning in their interactions. Cut you down to exaggerate your weaknesses and flaws as a way to make you feel inferior, um, and give you the silent treatment or attempt to get other members to turn against you or shun you. I could probably check off pretty much all of these, honestly. And that's not what family's about. That's not what families. That's not what being a human being should be about. It really shouldn't. If these are happening in your family, it's normal to feel that your power is being diminished. You also may feel like your emotional or mental health is suffering due to bullying. I personally always feel like I have to prove myself anymore, and that I have to justify my every actions and my every everything that I do. And it's like I don't remember the day I've ever had to do that before in my life, because I pretty much have always been a very strong, independent, um, you know, person, and I've always had my shit together. I have, and and it's we are all one tragedy away from losing our complete self. We are one breath, and I've learned so much over the years, not only about other people, but about myself. And I have looked that abyss in the eye, big time. And I've talked about it before. I'm a self-harm survivor. I am a I was actually suicidal, very, very deeply. I was in a very bad place in my life. And I'm a very vocal person. And when I'm quiet, usually I'm thinking or something is wrong. And I've gotten to the point where I don't really say much anymore out loud. And nobody really notices. They really don't. Because nobody's around. Nobody calls to check on me. Nobody, nobody, communicates with me. A couple of people do here and there. Um, but I was going through some of the most darkest moments of my life, and I didn't really see a way out. I didn't think that there. I was, I was done. I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop hurting. And I have this saying. I say, when I talk out loud, people think I'm crazy. When I talk to myself in my head, I make myself crazy. And I have been teaching. I know this is a little off subject, but it's not. Um, I have been trying to teach myself how to calm myself down, how to detour myself from negativity, how to redirect all the negative um, reinforcement I've had in my life, all the trauma, all the words and the emotions, and all the things that life, society, and family have made me feel. And I'm trying to take that part of me and heal her. And I told my counselor, he said, well, how are you doing with that? I'm in preschool. But that's a start. That's farther than what I was. And I'm trying very hard um, to keep going forward. And that's a big reason why I do these podcasts. Because even if I just help myself, and I pray that I help many more people, but if I'm just helping myself doing this podcast, then it's worth it for me. Because actually, I have found it very therapeutic for me. But at the same time, I am trying my best to reach other people in hopes to make a difference in somebody's life that is going through something um, in some direction. And I might not be going through something that you're going through directly, but I respect your emotions on it. And I don't. It doesn't even matter. Um, I don't want to say it like that because it does matter. I don't even need to know all the details. I don't even need to know any details, and I respect your emotions. I respect your feelings. I respect you, and I don't even have to know you because that's just who I am. And when you have things that go on in your life, whether they're tragedies to other people or not, if it affects you in some way, and hopefully it never goes as deep as mine did, where it was going to cost you your life, I hope you never have to face the family bully, especially in a moment that you're so vulnerable. And I always say I'm not going to go backwards, and I wasn't going backwards. Honestly, I was getting worse. I was getting worse, and I didn't even realize it. And I was falling. I was holding everybody else while I was hanging, and I just couldn't do it no more. But by the grace of God and a few other things in my life, here I am today. And with the tragedy of losing my dad, and the heartache of watching my mom suffering with the things that she's going through, as well as my children and my grandkids, um, I can honestly say I'm a self-harm survivor. I have not, I have not harmed myself. I have not taken it out on me. I have not mutilated my body, and I'm trying my best not to mutilate my mind anymore. And I'm trying to heal. And I pray for everybody that is going through something, because it's a darkness. It really is. Family is supposed to be there for you. That's what family, in my definition, is what family is supposed to be about. But unfortunately, in my life, that's not always true. So anyway, it says, if these things are happening in your family, it's normal to feel that your power is being diminished. You may also feel like your emotional and mental health is suffering due to the bullying. And if that is the case, it's time to start questioning the health of the relationship. Not only should you consider limiting your contact with this family member, but also you may want to get outside help, such as a counselor or a mental health professional, to help you learn how to interact and cope with a family member. You can also contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 800 799 7233. It's confidential assistance, and the advocates there are very trained and professional. They can help you process the bullying you are experiencing and, excuse me, how to respond to your family bullies. If you are being bullied by a family member, there are steps that you can take to end the behavior or protect yourself from its effects. Most importantly, look for any ally within or outside of the family to support you through this difficult experience. So you might want to try to find somebody, um, excuse me, a go-to, somebody that you trust, if that's at all possible. Because I know sometimes, especially in my situation, I didn't have nobody to go to, because the toll had already been taken so much on my daughter and my family, my kids, and um, I really didn't have nobody to go to. Um, and that was another one of my problems because I had never felt so alone in my life. And I would I would go out to I have a camper here. I would go out to my camper because I don't want to put my feelings on my mom. I mean, she'd already been through so much with losing my dad. Um, and I would go out there and I would lose it. And I had cried so much that my walls of my camper ended up soaking all my tears up. And after a while, that's pretty much all my camper was about, was my tear-soaked walls. I would literally cry myself to sleep so hard. It would make me sick. I would cry so much. And nobody would ever knew it. And it was getting dangerous. It was getting dangerous. Um, assert yourself. Anytime someone bullies you, it's important that you learn how to stand up for yourself. Being assertive means that you are honest about how you feel without acting aggressively, engaging in name calling, or being a bully yourself. Be specific about the problem without getting emotional. Sometimes that's easier said than done because it is an emotional thing. Especially when, excuse me, you've always been made to feel that your feelings don't matter. And then when you're trying to express yourself and let yourself out, and then you're made to feel like you're guilty or the emotions always get turned around or something, then you feel like, you're banging your head on the wall. Be prepared for the bully to challenge your perceptions or tell you that you are being unrealistic, selfish, or too sensitive. It's important not to own these accusations. They are just another attempt to control you or manipulate the situation. Try to say something like, "We are not talking about my emotions right now. We are discussing your behavior." Then restate your point. Use I statements like "I think" or "I feel" instead of phrases like "you always" and "you never." Maintain a positive body stance, which means making eye contact, standing up straight, and keeping your face neutral. That would be a hard one for me. If my mouth does not my face does. Rehearse what you want to say with someone you trust, like a friend or a counselor. Refrain from discussing negative emotions or feelings and focus on being honest, direct, and straightforward. Also, be prepared for the fact that the person bullying you may not respond how you hoped, which, if they're bullying you, I don't think you're really prepared for them to respect you and treat you any way positive. So I'm guessing that them coming back at you in a negative manner would be the way that you would be expecting. Things may not improve at all, but at least you have stood up for yourself and shared how you feel. Um, Establish boundaries. It's important to create firm boundaries between you and the bully. If a family member is bullying you, you can do some of the following. Know your limits and your values. These realizations will help you develop appropriate boundaries. For instance, maybe you don't mind a few jokes or occasional teasing, but you draw the line at name calling. Now, I'm going to say this in my family, the same people that I was talking about earlier. Um, my dad always felt like they were always making fun of him. And he felt like they were always talking about him and making fun of him and stuff. And it was a conversation that he would have with my mom and me. I was also aware because I've always been close to my parents. Um, and it's really sad. And one of the same family members, when my mom first went blind, um, they didn't believe my mom was blind, and so they more or less was insinuating she was making it up. So one of them one day decided to take a chair and put it in her way to see if she would see it. And my mom tripped over it. And I'm looking at them like, wow. Hmm. So it says, listen to your emotions and feelings. Take some time to think about how your family members' actions may make you feel. These feelings and emotions will provide you with clues on what you want to change and what you can no longer tolerate. Value yourself and your needs. Don't feel guilty about setting and enforcing your boundaries. Your wants and your needs are valid, and so are your feelings. You don't have to tolerate bad behavior just for the sake of the family. Make self care a priority. When you establish boundaries, you are taking care of your emotional, physical, and mental health. There is nothing wrong with that. Establishing boundaries with someone who is prone to bullying helps you make caring for yourself a priority. Be direct and clear about your expectations. You may need to practice beforehand, but make sure that when you share your boundaries, you are direct and to the point. Be specific about the behavior that bothers you, and then let the bully know that you are not going to tolerate it any longer. Communicate consequences if your boundaries are crossed. Once you have established a boundary, such as "I feel hurt when you call me names and I'm not going to accept that treatment," communicate a consequence. So you might follow it up with the next time you call me names, I'm going to end our conversation. Now, I'm going to say this. While this is true, if they are a bully, you think they're going to care? I mean, honestly, you say, well, I'm going to end our conversation if you're going to call me names. Um, I don't think they're going to really care. And maybe so, because then I mean, it does take two to argue. But at the same time, too, um, sometimes they can antagonize you. But sometimes if you try to walk away, which I have done this before, I've tried to walk away from somebody because I'm like, I'm not going to argue. And I'll actually leave the room. And they will literally follow me into the other room and keep going. And it's like, I left the room so we would not argue. I left the room because I'm done with this conversation. You follow me in here and want to continue. And I removed myself from that situation, and it's just some people just want to argue, and some people just want to drama, and some people just want to be right and controlling and whatever. And that's a tough situation to be in because you should not have family members like you should not have anybody like this in your life. But when it is family, it it makes it even more harder to your heart, because I don't know. I guess I'm from a broken family, but um, it literally has. It's hard to even have family sayings or, like I don't know, because I don't have that. I don't have that. Honor a commitment to the boundaries. It's very important that you follow through on your boundaries. If you have given a warning, if you want, by saying something like, please stop calling me names, if you continue, I'm going to leave. Recognize that you are in charge of your own boundaries. This means you can change them if you want to. If you find that the boundary is not working for you or it is difficult to enforce, then by all means change what it is. Boundaries are for the benefit and for your benefit, and you may need to change them here and there from time to time to make sure that they fit the situation or the needs that you got, and the person that you're dealing with. Be prepared for some resistance. Many times, a family bully will test your boundaries to see if you are serious. Be prepared for this to happen and plan how you're going to handle it. The bully may try to use guilt or manipulation by calling you controlling. Ignore these accusations. They are just another attempt to manipulate the situation. Your mental and your emotional health is important, and there is nothing wrong with taking steps to protect yourself. An example of boundary settings. Let's say your partner's aunt repeatedly insults your cooking and humiliates you in front of others. If you find this behavior hurtful, privately let her know that her comments hurt your feelings and that you would like her to stop. You could say something like, I am hurt and offended when you make fun of my cooking. Please don't do that again. You could leave it at that and see what happens again, or you can communicate a consequence. Then, if it happens again, remind her that you don't appreciate her insults and that you may not invite her to any other dinner gatherings. Be careful, though, not to make a threat. Just state the consequences in a matter of fact sort of way. She may never change her behavior, but you do not have to tolerate it just because she is family. Anytime family members continue to cross the line in their treatment of you, you need to limit the amount of contact you have with them. It will be hard to do, but in the end, it's better for your mental health. Again, like my mom says, you can't handle the way somebody treats you. You can't change the way somebody treats you. You can only handle how you respond to them. um, it says maintain your composure and be respectful. Just because the person bullying you is behaving inappropriately does not give you license to behave that way too. Make every effort to maintain your dignity and choose how to respond. It says turn to someone you trust. Sometimes it can help to share the details of your experience with a trusted friend. The key is to find someone that you can confide in. Stay clear of gossip, but look for someone who will support you when a incident occurs. Some people opt for telling other family members instead of a friend, but be careful in doing so. Sometimes family members feel that the situation they need to fix the situation and will end up creating more problems in the process. Or they like drama and they put logs on the fire. I add that part. Try to talk to someone who will keep what you say in confidence and not make the situation more difficult. I used to have to talk to certain people, my friend, about things because, for one, I needed to make sure I wasn't like imagining things and like this was really happening and get their opinion. But also, too, um, I needed a witness. I needed proof. I needed, someone that knew what was going on. And, you know, that's sad that you have to feel that way. It really is. Like I said, I also had to resort to recording conversation, and I did that one time, and I sent it to my friend, and I'm like, "This is what I'm going through. This is something I had to deal with," and it's heartbreaking. It really is. Um, Also, try to handle the bullying alone, or force yourself to keep silent about the bullying. Oh, it says don't try. I'm sorry. Don't try to handle the bullying alone, or force yourself to keep silent from the bully. Telling just one person can help you feel less isolated and alone. What's more, it helps to have someone listen to what you experience and validate your feelings. Just be sure to pick someone that you trust. That's the key word. Um, Make time to recharge. Being around a family member that bullies you can be draining and impact your health in negative ways. If you have to spend time with someone because of a family event like a wedding or a funeral or a baby shower, plan to take time for yourself afterwards. Like go for a walk, read a book, get a massage, something for you. Um, kind of like to, I guess, meditate and rejuvenate. Do something that will help you de stress and get rid of the energy that a bully brings into your life. If the family bullying begins to take a toll on your emotional health, look for a therapist that specializes in family issues. Um, Also, too, there's a lot of triggers. And if your family knows about weaknesses in your life or things that you've been through in your life, obviously, they're going to throw triggers at you to set you off. Especially if other people are around that they're trying to um, underclass you, I guess, and um, finding ways to manipulate you and trigger you to get a reaction out of you. And that then just adds more um, leverage, I guess you could say, in their end towards you, which then harms you even more and makes you more of um, a victim. Um, if you have a family member who's bullying you, it's important to take steps to protect your emotional and mental health. Bullying behaviors don't end without some type of intervention. That being said, you cannot control another person's behavior or choices, so you will need to learn how to be assertive, set boundaries, and take care of yourself. And in some cases, you will need to cut ties with the person bullying you. This may be a difficult decision to make, but at the end, the important thing is that you're taking care of yourself. Now, I'm going to say that this is really some good information, but again, depending on your situation in your family and how active your family is. Like, for instance, our family was always big at gatherings. Like, we have a big, quote, quote, family. And it was not uncommon for us to have wall to wall tables um, for family holidays. And but at the same time too, even though we had big tables and big get-togethers, there was drama. Um, there was a lot of drama, and I'm not even going to sit here and rehash some of it because honestly, There's no point. Um, and I say that because if I sat here and picked out all the things that I have been bullied about in my family, um, I would not have anything else to talk about, honestly. Um, but at the same time, too, my children were bullied by my family members, their family members as well, and it makes it very difficult when you have um, a semi close knit um, family get-togethers for like my parents, for instance. You know, my mom and my dad, whatever, we'd have get-togethers. Uh, and for the sake of family, for them, we were all there. I mean, for the most part. And like I said, he felt like he was being made fun of, and they were talking about him and stuff. And um, we would always, my mom and I would cook, and we always cleaned up, and they would just sit in the other room. They would never come in and help us clean. Would never help us straighten up and pick things up. They just sat in the other room, chit chatting amongst each other. And it got to the point where I went out and bought my mom a dishwasher. Because I'm like, well, if you're gonna do dishes a holiday, here you go. you know, and my girls, would come in there and help clean up and stuff, and we, wipe the tables down and put food away and do the dishes, and it even got to the point where my dad was coming in there and doing it. And they was still sitting there in the other room, chit chatting away. Never once, I could not tell you one time that they ever came in there and did anything at all. And it was to the point where my mom started making name tags for us. Like this is where this person's gonna sit, and it got to the point where one time, um, one of the family members didn't want to sit next to me, so they moved the name tag. And mom was like, "That's not how it said," and they didn't want to sit by me, so they moved the name tag. And my mom's like, "This is ridiculous," and it's just things like that. And I had bought one of we had done like our family got really huge, so we did. Eventually, we ended up like drawing names later in the years, but um, one year, we have a huge amount of grandkids and kids. I mean, I have 7 grandkids just myself, and three kids, and then other family members. We have a big family, and so it got to the point where it's getting expensive buying Christmas gifts. I mean, so you get to the point where you want to obviously get the kids first, and obviously I do my parents and my whatever. But it got to the point where money was starting to get a little tight, but you didn't want to leave nobody out. So one year I had some candles, and they weren't the greatest looking candles, but they were they smelled good. They were like little smell good candles and whatever. And anyway, I wrapped those up. I think there was like 5 of them, and I wrapped them up and I gave them to this one family member. And they made such the biggest deal out of me giving them those candles that they actually went in there and threw them in the trash and could not believe that I had got them candles for Christmas and threw them in the trash. And my mom later had said, she was tight on money. She didn't want to exclude you, so that's all she could afford. That's all she could do. And it was very disrespectful. And I'm like, you could have just took them and left with them. You didn't need to go in there and just throw them in the trash in the other room. You know what I mean? And so it was like that was the end of it. My mom's like, from now on, we're just gonna draw a name. And then it just got to the point where we didn't even do that eventually. And now we don't even share the holidays anymore. We don't have the big get-togethers. This past Thanksgiving was just me and my mom. And this Easter, it's just going to be me, my mom, and my daughter. And Christmas, we separated the families, and we actually, I obviously had Christmas with my mom, and then my sister had came over a different day. My daughter had come over a different day, because obviously, she had things with the other side of the family. Um, and then my oldest sister and her girls didn't come until like I don't know, mid January, I think, um, something like that. Um, and then my stepsister and my both my stepsisters didn't come over to like in February, I think. But obviously because they were sick too at different times. But um, so like we were spread out, and I was okay with that because just for one, my mom has been through so much, and it's just when we go from having a big, huge get together at the holidays, like every holiday, to my mom, like, I just don't even, I just don't even want to fool with it. She's like, it's just going to be me and you. Just make a big dinner and we'll just have lots of leftovers. And that's what we did. And it was quiet, it was no drama, and it was delicious. um, but to look at my mom and know that she had to change her holidays around to not deal with drama in our family and in time of need that she needs us basically more than ever. It's sad, but I tell her, all due respect, Mom, after everything that I went through with my grandson, I consider the sources, and I'm not surprised. But out of respect for you, my heart breaks for you because you don't deserve that. I mean, I didn't deserve it either, but you don't deserve that. And like I said, I don't got one family member out of that bunch. Um, if anything, they talk crap about me. And it's like, you know what? I don't even and my mother and I have talked about this extensively. And I've even had my aunt has even talked about me. She talks to my older sister all the time, like they're buddies. Like my sister drove all the way in from Ohio to go to my aunt's house to do meal prepping, and she don't ever say, "Hey, Dee Dee, you need some help," or "Hey, why don't you go do something and I'll look after your mom," or because I don't get any help. I take care of my mom 24/7. I don't get no help. I don't go nowhere, do nothing, or talk to nobody outside of what I do in this house and my podcast. I'm an artist and I do a lot of artwork and crafting and stuff like that, and I do my podcast. And I'm a writer. I write poetry and stuff. But my main thing is taking care of my mom. And not one time do I get a call. Hey, I'm going to come in from Ohio to go over and meal prep, or I'm going to go over to our aunt's house to go swimming. But never once. Hey, I'm going to come over so you can go take a break or a day off. Or they go to Chicago for New Year's, bring the New Year in, or they go to Bahamas or wherever else. But not one time do I hear, hey, do you need some help? Do you need something? How are you doing? Nope. And my younger sister had surgery. Like, my younger sister's had lots of surgery. I mean, she was on life support um, a few years ago and was really touch and go. And she's been through a lot of surgeries and she's got a lot going on. And she had two surgeries done within a month time here recently, like back in November, I believe, December, somewhere around that time. Anyway, not one time did my aunt call my sister and ask her how she was doing. Not one time has she called and asked me how I'm doing. But she is all the time on the phone with my older sister, knowing everything that's going on with her. They're all buddies. They spend the holidays together. My sister and her and their family went to Florida together at Thanksgiving. Um, not this past year, but the year before. Um, and went to Florida and then came here. um, for Thanksgiving or whatever. And it's just that's the type of drama that is just not necessary, because even though they don't say anything directly, it speaks volumes. And like I said, I don't have any place for that in my life. I am cordial, I am respectful for my mother, but I will not be bullied anymore. And if you are going through something, please talk to somebody, go to somebody, get help, get proof, whatever you need to do to justify your well being. But don't by any means let them manipulate you to make you feel you're a less than a person, because it is a reflection of their own self that they are taking out on you. And you do not deserve that. If anything, I would look at them and say, you know what? I'll pray for you. Or I'll look at them and say, it must be really hard for you to be you, and be done with it. Those would be my comebacks. Well, a few other things, but out of respect for trying not to escalate it. Um, but if you are going through something and your mental stability is upside down, there are resources to help you. There are support groups. There are more people um, that are going through this probably than what they realize. And a lot of times I have found that the bullies feel like they're the victims. And then that makes you even more question your sanity, because you're like, am I wrong here? Because eventually it messes with your self-esteem and who you are. And it can leave a heavy toll on you. And your mental well-being is just as important as your physical well-being. I always say, obviously 988 is a suicide prevention hotline. They're very educated, skilled professionals that can help you. Um, don't don't feel bad to reach out to somebody, because if anything, I believe that's the most heroic thing that a person can do. Because I know all too well how difficult that can be, but also too knowing that certain people that you think you can reach out to end up being the one persons that you regret reaching out to. So trying to find somebody who's non-biased for you and less judgmental. And sometimes it's best to have somebody who is an outsider, because for one, they can be not, they can be non-judgmental, get that word out, but also too they're not biased, and they don't have anything to win or gain from your pain. So they can be open-minded and also too resourceful on troubleshooting your well-being, but also maybe they can relate to some things you're going through and can help you. Or maybe too, you guys might decide and find out that you both are victims, and maybe the other person didn't realize it, or vice versa. Or maybe somebody comes to you and confides in you and needs your help and your opinions, and you know you need to be their, they need you to be their go-to. And if that's the case, don't don't take advantage of somebody's trust like that and go and twist it around and use it to benefit your condescending uh, drama. That, don't start stuff off of it. And, because what if somebody goes to somebody they confide in and they happen to be a bully too? And so it's really a fine line in a lot of ways, and that's really sad. But finding somebody who's neutral, I think, would be the most resourceful thing to do, in my opinion. So again, if you are going through something, obviously 988 is a suicide prevention hotline. There are resources out there. There's counseling. You can talk to your family doctor. They can give you resources. Find something to have an outlet, somewhere to put your feelings, find things to do. And if you do have to do family outings with people, and you already know ahead of time how they're going to respond and how they're going to be, so make counteracting plans, I guess, ahead of time, plan A and plan B, or whatever the case may be, to where you can, divert yourself enough to where you don't have to be in the crossfire, per se, of their manipulating ways. You know, kind of redirect yourself to something else, and where you're still functioning in the family, per se, that you're not going to be, talked about, like, in a negative way, like they didn't even participate, they weren't even in here, they, this, that, and the other. I mean, don't try to give them more ammunition, but at the same time, too, who cares? Who cares? I mean, yeah, it's traumatizing. It is, and I say that because I know, in my end, I understand that emotion. But at the same time, I'm looking at them now like, why should I really even care? When you didn't care how I felt. You didn't care where I've been in my life. You didn't care where I'm at now. So why should I care about yours? And that's the way I look at it. And I don't do it in a mean, deceitful way. I do it in a matter of fact way that life is too short for the bullshit. I am too old to have to put up with it and too young to have to worry about it. And that's just the way I'm trying to look at it now. And I know that's easier said than done, but my sanity's on the line. And I'm going to try to redirect it one positive emotion at a time. And I pray for each and every one of you that is going through something, regardless of what it is. And my heart goes out to you. But as always, if you are taking the time out to listen to me, thank you. I always say your time in your life is the one thing in your life that is precious and irreplaceable. And if you take that time out to spend it listening to me, then you are taking time out of your life that you will never get back to listen to me and dedicate it to um, sharing it with me. And I appreciate that. And that means a lot to me. So, on that note, I will close out now. And I hope this was a lot of information for you that is helpful. But at the same time, too, sometimes enough is enough. And whether they're a family member, a work coworker, um, or even your spouse or your significant other, nobody deserves to be treated that way. And you are not a bad person to advocate and stand up for yourself. If you can't advocate for yourself, who can? And with respect to that, I'm going to close out. And again, thank you all for your time, and I hope you all have a safe and blessed evening. Good night.